And yes, we are here in the lower bracket where we're gonna be eliminating just within today 4 teams already. What do you say about that, Xcontrol?
I mean, we've got a lot of really big names from kind of like the early stages of the tournament as well. We've got Liyab, we've got 16-bit who won the previous tournament that was hosted here by Dave. We've got DR Esports, Bigatron Infinity, Next Play are even in the elimination brackets. I mean, we have got a lot of teams that I was not really expecting to be at this stage. And so saying goodbye to it, 4 of them, feels pretty bad.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anyway, I mean, this Asia Brawl event that we've got includes a lot of top tier teams coming from different regions. So that's super exciting. Well, anyway, we talk about the draft that we've gotten here in the commercial. You saw that we're still implementing the all-round ban and pick mode wherein each of the teams will no longer be able to make use of a champion that they have already used in the previous round. So whatever they have picked already in this round 1, they can no longer use that in the succeeding rounds. We've got a best of 3, all 4 series for today. And talking about the all-round ban pick, this what comes into play into this strategy is that, you know, are they going to be reserving some of the champions for the later round, or are they going to be going all in for just the first round? What do you think about that, Xcontrol?
I think on a best of 3, there are enough power picks in every role that I don't think it matters too much, I suppose. So for instance, like Olaf, in my opinion, is absolutely S+ tier in both the jungle and Baron lane right now. I think he's one of the best champions in the game. Misfortune is a really high tier AD carry. So I think, you know, we're probably going to see across the best of 3s, this all-round ban pick scenario is not going to test the limits too much. I think it's when we get to those best of 7s where realistically you could be having up to 35 unique champions played in a game, which it's like it's almost pushing the limits of the champions that we even have available in Wild Rift. So it's you know, it's going to be pretty spicy to get to that point. But you know, I've never cast or even worked in a tournament that has used this type of format before. So it's just very interesting to see. It's a very different test of skill,
yes,
for teams compared to a traditional esports setting. So, but you know, I think that's good. You know, it's nice to have these shake-ups, and it's nice to put teams under a different strategic pressure just based on format alone.
Yeah, we see this Corki getting picked once more. A quite massive amount of buff from the most recent patch that we've got in here at the League of Legends Wild Rift. And what do you think will be the best counter for this Corki? Because, you know, he can deal a lot of massive damage, but I think having enough CC as well will maybe will allow him to stop him. But I think that's the hard CC might not be present that as of yet, and so far in the current picks of 16-bit gear. What do you say so, Xcontrol?
Well, I think, yeah, the really interesting thing about the Asian scene is they tend to pick Corki down in the marksman role, whereas in Europe and kind of some from the North American players that are playing on the European server, he's more played in mid. So it is interesting to see Corki down in the AD carry role, because right now for Liyab, they're kind of lacking a major source of physical damage, which, you know, yes, you've got Lee Sin, but both Orianna and Corki deals 80% magic damage. So like we've got a very high source of magic damage coming out from Liyab. And to answer your question about how to deal with him, well, I think Akali was a decent answer. You've got point and click CC from the Vi, so it's very difficult for Corki to escape that. Can't even get out of it with his Valkyrie, where he becomes unstoppable during the duration. So I think there is enough point and click CC right now to be able to deal with Corki, and so as long as you have him locked down and then you can just immediately rush the Olaf on top of his head, I think that might be enough alongside the Akali to be able to effectively deal with the Corki here.
Let's see, this time you can see Morita Boy, by the way, already playing for Liyab Esports. Many viewers are actually waiting for him to join the group once more, and yes, he's back. So we've got, I think it was Trish that we've got sub out for the meantime in here. It's very crucial that you've got the main jungler of your team playing for this losers bracket. So we've got the draft finalized already. Xcontrol, what do you think got a better advantage in terms of the overall composition, as you can see in here in the draft that we finalized so far?
So both of these teams kind of doing similar type things, although I'd say that you look at the Liyab roster, they've clearly got what is designed to be a really effective 5v5 comp. You've got both the Lee Sin / Alistair and Orianna combo. You just throw the ball on either the Orianna or the Lee Sin's head, jump them into the middle of the team fight, look for a big shockwave. Corki is an absolute monster once he gets to level 9 onwards with the buffs. So, scaling up in terms of what they can do. They've got a later game scaling damage profile as well. Both Orianna and Corki scale incredibly well into the late game in terms of damage output. But as I said, I'm a little worried, I guess, for the physical damage output as the game goes on, because Garen and Lee Sin, they will fall off in terms of effective physical damage output, and the majority of your late game damage output is going to be coming from Corki and Orianna, who of course are magic damage dealers. So I am thinking... Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about who. I'm just surprised that Liyab Esports have picked in here a Garen on their side. This is not what we usually see. Usually we would see this coming from the side of Omega Esports, and I think maybe they found the use of the silence coming from the Garen. Maybe they wanna just a shutdown or maybe stop someone coming from this side of 16-bit gear. That could potentially be that Misfortune who's going to be trying to go for the backline play, just going for the free hit and kite, just to deal massive amounts of damage to who will be frontlining. Could be the Garen, of course, could be the Alistar as well. But let's see how this will work for Liyab Esports, showing us for the first time them picking up a Garen.
Yeah, the Garen is definitely an interesting addition. I see a lot of this in competitive play, as you said, like Omega play it quite a lot here as well. He's a very effective tank, obviously, Garen. He scales quite well as a tank into the late game. Also, in a top lane matchup where you're not entirely sure how it goes, or you're not looking to play aggressive, Garen is very, very safe because of his passive. He can just essentially regenerate huge amounts of health, and it doesn't matter how bad the matchup is for Garen. If you take damage, you just walk away for 6 seconds and start regenerating HP. So it's one of those things that, Garen will always be able to play relatively safe in any Baron lane matchup. And also, if you're just looking to build him pure tank, he's a relatively solid frontliner as well because of his second ability. And he always has that execute potential, and you can't ignore a Garen. Even at full tank, you can't ignore a Garen. It's not like if he's running at you, you can just let him hit you, because again, his ultimate big execute potential and can even kill someone as a full tank. So, I think there is some value to having Garen, but obviously we need to look at 16-bit as well. I mean, 16-bit have got a lot of power picks. They've got the Misfortune. They've got the Olaf Baron lane. Olaf should beat Garen pretty easily in the 1v1 in the Baron lane, but as I said, if Rubix wants to take it safe, he can just back off and regenerate HP. The only problem is that I think when it comes to a pure 5v5, I feel like 16-bit need to snowball their comp much more, because if they get into the late game, even if Vi and Olaf are building magic resist to sort of cope with Corki and Orianna as the game goes on, they are going to fall off, I think, in terms of how they effectively play team fights out, but also the damage that they're throwing out there too.
That's for sure, especially even though we've seen quite a bit of nerf onto this listen. We know that he is still getting a priority in the drafts of all of the teams that we can see in here so far at the Asia Brawl, especially the potential coming from that Lee Sin to even try to get that Misfortune from the back line. We'll see how this will go though, but yeah, you did mention that already as well, that they have to be very careful in the late game. Potential coming from Liyab Esports, massive amounts of magic damage coming from that Corki as well as the Orianna, but in the early stage of the game, we can see that Corki might also be placed in the dangerous position, especially if that Vice as well as the Akali try to go for that real good assassin place, just finding the spot where they can get him off guard.
Yeah, I think obviously if you can snowball the Akali, you can snowball the Olaf, like you can run down the Corki and Orianna relatively easily. And I'm talking about things like that first dragon fight, the first Rift Herald fight. This is the kind of things that you can maybe look to snowball as 16-bit. I think you've got a stronger level 5 in general when it comes to fighting for that first dragon right here. So I think 16-bit are probably looking to put the gas on very early on into this game. You want, when you've got a Misfortune and an Olaf and a Brawl, you want to be going in and scrapping and brawling as much as physically possible in the early game.
Yes, for sure. And now we've loaded into the game. We can see where the players are already coming from. Look at that 4-man or even 5-man invade right away coming from the side of 16-bit. Looks like they really want to stop the early snowball that might be happening. That Lee Sin might do early game time. What do you say about this strategy that so far is being pulled off by 16-bit?
Well, yeah, interesting because they are committing a lot of resources, especially Tong and Misfortune. They are being committed very heavily to the top side of the map here. And obviously, as you can see, there is some wild antics going on about where the Alistair is ended up being positioned and where's the Brawns ended up being positioned. It looks like they're actually sending their AD carries 1v1 down into the Dragon lane here. Braum's still hanging up on the top side of the map with the Alistair. This is a very interesting strategy. They committed a lot of resources just to take away the Lee Sin's red buff. It does look like Vi is actually committing to clearing some more of the camps on the top side of the map. She will walk across a ward in this scenario, and I get the impression that we could see some vertical jungling coming out. And when I say vertical jungling, I mean, you know, Lee Sin may look to try and get into the red side jungle of Vi. But what is going on here? Like, the supports haven't even made it to bot lane yet. Like, this is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And here we can see, oh, look at that first one coming from that Lee Sin. I actually did not expect that to happen because somehow, with the strategy that was pulled off coming in from 16-bit, I thought it's going to be the Lee Sin missing out just a little bit of farm early game time because, you know, okay, he tried to go onto the top side. Then they saw that members come from the side of 16-bit are there trying to go for an invade. So he has to transition on the other end of the map to find his farm, and lucky enough for him, they take down one target, come from the side of 16-bit, and that was very valuable. And I think marksman what we've got from the ball lane, I mean the Corki as well as the Misfortune, they just tried to buy their time, at least get the waves that they wanted solo for themselves, while their supports are still roaming the map, finding the vision, just, you know, doing the jungle tracking work.
Yeah, for me that was an interesting strategy though, personally, because Misfortune is super strong in the laning phase. Like her double up does an obscene amount of damage. You're often looking for any kind of opportunity as a duo to go in and take advantage of the Braum passive alongside Misfortune, her damage in the early game. The Braum, I think, was so concerned about preventing the Lee Sin invade onto the red side jungle of Vi that he just got caught out by the Alistair, who hit level 2 naturally through sort of a passive experience leeching. And yeah, I think they just got a little bit too concerned with preventing Lee Sin heading into the bottom side. I wasn't too sure about that strategy from Braum, and I feel like they lost a little bit of the power of the laning phase from the Misfortune here. So again, this has been a very clunky early game. The dragon does spawn in 1 minute. It is an Infernal. It probably is just the most important dragon in the game right now. So I expect there is going to be some kind of brawl around this early dragon.
One thing I noticed though, it is not Marita Boy actually playing the jungle for the side of Liyab Esports. So it is him going for the support role and Miggy going for the jungle. But for the meantime, we see in here an invade coming from the side of 16-bit again. They failed this time because of the response coming from the side of Liyab. So that was really great. I mean, if we just talk about the time that the Vi spent on attempting to go for that steal, that did not happen. You know, he could have been missing some of the jungle or the farm that he would want to have for himself.
Yeah, and you just saw that they actually timed it rather well. Like, they've denied the red buff from the Lee Sin. They backed and reset. They picked up some, I assume, some items heading into this Infernal Dragon spawn. Misfortune has now just done the same. So they've actually timed their resets really nicely here. The only problem that I have is Olaf is still on the top side of the map. So it looks like Garen is heading down right now, but Olaf is still on the top side of the map. So we could be in a 4v5 scenario. It feels like that the entire 16-bit team, except for Olaf, have looked to coordinate for this Infernal Drake. But the team commit from Liyab, it just means that they're now in a 4v5 scenario, and I don't even think that 16-bit want to try and attempt this. They're just going to go for the steal.
let's see if they're gonna go for that still. Oh, look at that. Bullet time has been committed, but that won't be enough to actually go for that still for the Infernal Drake. Someone else in here is still committing onto that kill, potentially up against the Garen. They will get the Garen. Akali will, and they take a turret as well up top. So, given the fact, I think that was a 2-for-1 trade for that matter. 16-bit taking down maybe potentially even 2 turrets just for that Infernal Drake. What do you say about that, Excondro?
Well, I think realistically, I do feel Infernal Drake is one of the strongest Drakes in the game right now. That's a little bit of an overcommit though here.
Yes, indeed. I'm just not seeing it just quite nicely. It's very pixelated on my end, but we can see a double kill coming here from the Garen, but in the end, he will just die onto the hands of the Akali. Wow, this is also Liyab Esports not able to take down the first turret down bottom part of the map, but they suffered, or they lost the turrets up top. So that was massive, because the next objective that we're about to see is that Rift Herald that is about to spawn in less than 15 seconds. So given the fact that they got a position onto the top side, and maybe even for the mid as well, 16-bit is, maybe they will get an upper advantage onto positioning themselves. But seems like Liyab Esports will not allow themselves to lose that position, as well as they go for an early position onto that pit as well.
Yeah, it looks like they're committing the roster here to the Rift Herald. I do want to kind of touch on the point that you mentioned previously. You said, you know, do you think it was worth it to trade the Infernal Drake for 2 towers top? Absolutely, yes. The reason being is that Infernal Drake, whilst the percentage damage gain is probably one of the most important scaling elements in the game here for Wild Rift, I would say that if you are 16-bit in this scenario, that percentage damage gain is not going to make a huge amount of difference in the early game. It will not really be into the late game that you feel the effects of the Infernal Dragon really kind of making the difference in terms of the damage output of the team. So, you know, when it comes to at this stage of the game, especially when 16-bit are looking to play a more early game focused brawl heavy team, then I think they'll happily say we'll take the flat gold that those towers are going to provide us. They're going to give us some item spikes that we can work with, and we can use those to A, win this Rift Herald fight, like you said, and B, then maybe move on to another Drake fight. We have a bit of an engage in the bot lane here. Olaf trying to go in, but Garen, he just walks away.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how 16-bit is very much mindful about their turrets. They're not giving any turrets to Liyab Esports, but what they lost a while ago is the early position that they supposedly should have in here in the Rift Herald. We have a fight ongoing once more, and seems like that Braum is gonna go down, the Vi's gonna go down as well, but a comeback play coming from that Akali, taking down the Orianna. The members from the side of Liyab Esports will have to back away a little bit just to get that Akali, and this is a good position. This is even a good time to go get the Herald. But for the meantime, they're gonna go for a defensive play in the middle lane, not gonna give that turret to that Misfortune as well as the Olaf. But yeah, I think that was a really nice answer onto that early position that Team 16-bit got a while ago.
Oh, getting a spicy replay of the draft there, Dave. Thank you. No, but I think they again, one of the things about Corki, as you know, he picks up the package. Usually before these big neutral objective fights, it can be a very big difference to make a big game-changing ability, especially when used in choke points. Corki dropped that in the blue side entrance just from the river into the blue side jungle of 16-bit. It was a really nicely placed package. It made it very awkward for the majority of the 16-bit roster to coalesce into a proper 5v5 team fight. However, it does mean he won't have it for this dragon fight now, and I think 16-bit are aware of that. Now, one of the things that I found very interesting about the 16-bit strategy so far is they have refused to commit Olaf early to the fights. Not entirely sure why that's the case. I think Olaf is super strong in teamfight scenarios, especially in the early game. They've kind of been more interested in leaving him in a split push role. He is now coming down for this, but it's a split 16-bit team.
And here, everyone's just trying to contest this area where we've got another objective. Oh, the Lizin has fallen down, but a 1-for-1 trade so far, not yet even done. The power spike and the damage come from the Orianna is there already. Members of the side of 16-bit has to back away, and that Corki is gonna get one more kill. Vi is left alone. I don't think he will be in the best position to even try to contest that Drake, but for the meantime, this is Liyab Esports for sure is gonna go for that inhibitor take, or rather rather a tier 1 turret take in the middle lane. Maybe they'll be able to get 1 or 2, I'm not sure. But no, the death timers are actually still low, so they have to back away and just reset.
Yeah, one of those things, we talked about the better team fight 5v5 comp coming out from Liyab. Oh yeah, we're at that point in the game now. Corki's hitting level 9, Orianna's hitting level 9. They're both actually level 10 at this point in time. We had some key items picked up, the Archangels, or now the Seraphs into the Archangels, obviously now the Liandries for the Orianna too. So these guys are actually starting to hit their really strong power spikes. And I feel like, again, like some of these fights in the early game, 16-bit committing Olaf away from the fight, even though it made sense maybe for the Infernal Drake, they also committed him away from the fight for the Rift Herald fight that we had as well. So I feel like they may have given away the edge. We've got another fight breaking out though.
Yes, for sure. In here, we've got the bullet time fully committed, but that wasn't really capitalized so well. I think it was a bad position in the end. Lots of HP bars still on the side of Liyab Esports, and they are really just obliterating the members of 16-bit in here. Looks like they're gonna be wiped out anytime soon, but the Cal is still safe. Somewhere there, down bottom part of the map. And might this be a Baron take anytime for Liyab Esports? Are they gonna be resetting? Oh, Lee Sin is super low. I'm not too sure what they're gonna be planning on this one, but that was a good power spike once more, or a snowball for Liyab Esports.
Yeah, again, you're just seeing the pure dominance in the 5v5 part of the team fight here for Liyab, and you can just have a look back at that replay. Yeah, they're playing front to back so well. Like, they're able to just effectively keep the Akali pushed out of the fight. Corki is zoning so well with the Orianna, preventing much of the damage getting through the front line. And when I say front to back, I mean, what I literally mean is your tanks in front, you DPS it back, and you just kind of play the fight either kiting backwards or kiting forwards. And it was just too easy for Liyab to play these fights out. And this is why, I think the 16-bit should have tried to capitalize on that early snowball with the gold that they picked up in the top lane. But they've been running a very odd strategy to me. Like, I think if you're going to commit Olaf to a side lane, right, you have to commit Akali to the other and try and play a 1-3-1. Like, you say, okay, Akali's 3-1 in the early game, get her into a 1v1 scenario, force her into a situation where she's pushing side lanes, someone has to respond to her, and she can kill them in a 1v1 scenario. Olaf, go and push the other lane, and then the rest of our team will just be okay, fine, just pushing or keeping mid lane down. So you create pressure in the side lanes. You force this pure team fight comp to break up into 3 separate lanes to deal with the pressure. That would have been the way that I would have played this if I was 16-bit. However, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, go ahead. So yeah, what just makes me wonder actually is that 16-bit got a good early advantage from a while ago. I mean, that was just quite unfortunate. It was Liyab Esports who got the first blood against them, but we saw that 2 turret takes from a while ago, and that was an early position already for the Rift Herald, but they failed to position themselves in that pit and just get that area in such a way they will be shoving away the members of Liyab Esports. But that didn't happen. They got the position, they got the turrets up top, but the members were just roaming around somewhere down bottom part of the map, and they not capitalizing the advantage that they got early on. And this happened again. It keeps on getting repeated and repeated and repeated. They're just giving the position to Liyab Esports, and I think that is what Liyab Esports is just capitalizing on. Okay, they're not positioned early on, and then we'll take the bush, we'll take the pit, we'll take the area where the next objective is.
I think one of the problems that we have for 16-bit is that early advantage, then they grouped up for the Rift Herald, and they still left Olaf in the bottom side of the map. Olaf is a key part of what your kind of like double assassin type attempt at dealing with the Corki and the Orianna. Olaf isn't strictly an assassin, but he will run down your carries, right? He will just run at them in his ultimate, can't be stopped. And he'll kill your carries relatively quickly. You want to combo that with the Akali to blow up either the Corki or the Orianna quickly into the fight, and then start to pick apart the Liyab team fight. But they didn't commit Olaf to the Rift Herald fight, and then they fought when Corki had package. They got caught out in a great choke point, and then Liyab were able to dominate from there. It was just some interesting map decisions given the advantage that they picked up in the early game here for 16-bit, and you can see it's kind of essentially cost them the game, because I agree with the way that they played that early double turret take. Yeah, a little shockwave coming out. The fight might break out though.
Yes, and they're gonna go all out. Do you remember? Oh, look at that bullet time connecting to a lot of members of Liyab Esports. Looks like they need to back away a little bit. Everyone just ate at that bullet time coming from the misfortune. But we did see that Oriana already lost the ultimate a while ago, committing onto two members from the side of 16-bit. But what was quite unfortunate for 16-bit is that they already lost two inhibitor turrets on the end. So we're talking about the super minions of flowing towards that mid lane as well as the bot lane part of the map. But yeah, another note though, I just realized I want to say some trivia for the viewers as well. So both Migi as well as Moraita Boy has some background or experience in playing as a jungler professionally. But before we talk more about that, we can see the Olaf once more quite overextending down deep that up top lane, almost dying onto the hands of the members of Liyab Esports. So that was quite unfortunate. This is the only problem that you got. You know, when you lost a lot of turrets already, sometimes you don't really intend to overextend. You just want to go for a split push work, but since you already lost the position, it's gonna be quite hard because you don't really have that vision and everything. But yeah, going back to the trivia, Liyab Esports, Migi as well as Liyab Esports, Moraita Boy, both of them get a background in playing professionally as a jungler. And when you put them in the support role, I think that's quite an advantage because you know, okay, what's gonna be the mindset of my jungler? Where should I roam around? Where should I position myself? And I think that was one advantage as well that Liyab Esports has. So they know what to do in each of the roles, regardless if you want to flex them.
Yeah, I think that well, we have just got another fight breaking out here.
Yeah, another fight in here, and I think they're just gonna be going for the all-out damage. Gonna be taking down the Misfortune. I think this is gonna be it soon.
I think this is game over here because I think it's game over.
Yeah, this is Olaf gonna go for that defensive play, but I don't think he can do anything about it because we got more super minions flowing down bottom part of the map. And this is it. Our game 1 gonna be taken by Liyab Esports. Unfortunately for a 16-bit, they kind of fell short on how they executed their play, their strategy.
Yeah, like you said, I think the first dragon fight was a sensible decision. If you weren't going to rotate the Olaf, then definitely go for that double tower play. But it's how you use that gold that is important. And you know, you funneled a lot of gold onto the Akali in that situation. She picked up quite a lot of kills in that top lane brawl where she kind of came out 3-1. So the way that you should really look to play this is exploit how far ahead your Akali is, put her into a side lane maybe, and try and force the 1v1s over and over again. However, it came to that Rift Herald fight, maybe where Akali could have shined with the Olaf, and they just didn't rotate the Olaf. And then they got caught out by a package. And at that point onwards, you allowed the Liyab roster to get to level 9 relatively easily. Yeah, the 9-minute mark, they were able to then basically bring it back. And essentially, once you get the Oriana and the Corki to level 9, and they have 2 items, like if you are not significantly ahead already, the game's already over. Like that, those two scale really well into the late game, and you could see from the item builds as well that not many, even the Vi, didn't even have a thought about some magic resist. Like I would have been picking up magic resist pretty early on